Welcome, everyone. We're going to talk today about the role of physical affection in mid-single dating. The thing that I liked about this chapter, well, he even just started off in the very first section, Jeff. He said, if you come to this chapter hoping we will spill out detailed rules and limits for physical affection, you may be disappointed. We have far too much respect for you. You are adults, and we are not going to step into the trap of defining the limits of the law of chastity and have no desire to start a debate about it either. Seek the Holy Spirit and set those limits for yourself. So that's really all the stuff that we talk about. There's people that have opinions and experiences and their thoughts on it. And there are even therapists tell what is best for relationships, how it's best to build these healthy relationships and intimacy in marriage. But ultimately, it comes down to us, which is why they talk. I mean, all the things that we talk about, and it goes back to that. And we'll dive into each topic individually, and I'll point out what I mean by that. So the first section, does anyone have anything about the first section? Understanding physical affection and sexual love. I highlighted a section here. I'm going to give it a break though, in case you guys have something you want to say. There's one quote in that section I wanted to read. I'll just read it, and then if anyone else has anything to add, you can. So it says, while we do not recommend, this is the first paragraph in that section, understanding physical affection and sexual love. While we do not recommend the full expression of sexual love prior to marriage, we do not believe in ignoring the subject either. And I think that's also the point of this chapter is they could have just ignored this whole topic and said, wait until you're married to figure this out. But it's so important, especially with all of the issues that we have at our age with past experiences or whatever we might have had that might need to be brought up before when we're dating. So Dr. let's see, what is it called? What is she called? Finlayson Fife. Do you guys know her? Are you familiar with her teachings? I don't know a lot, but I hear a lot of people that like her. She says we spend so much time focusing on what we're trying to avoid and so little time on focusing on what we're trying to create. So anyway, I bet Heather has something to say about that because I know that's what the podcast talks
On
about.
top of page 213, it says, well, there's no foolproof way to ensure a great sexual relationship in marriage. Your chances are far better with some exploration of physical affection within the laws of chastity. And I like this part. It says, open discussion based on experience, history, and the meanings you each attach to lovemaking. So there is the physical exploration because you can do that within courtship and it's fun and that's part of a relationship. But go deeper in discussion.
Yeah.
Not when you're all fired up.
Yes. Yeah, because your brain's not working fully, right?
Yeah, and then it said physical affection during courtship is a precursor to the sexual relationship within marriage. So, people are like, oh, well, let's discuss finances. Well, let's discuss what sex is going to be for us and what we both want that to be. Why wouldn't you discuss it? It's important. So to see if you're aligned, to see if you have the same thoughts and feelings, and if you've had poor experiences, because some people will come out into the singles world having very bad experiences, and that's a very scary area for them to look at in the future. And like, I don't even want to go there. That's scary to me. Or I've had such horrible experiences. I don't want that to repeat itself. Well, it will repeat itself unless you deliberately change it, and you do that through discussion.
Okay. That's so good. And then to add into what you're saying, what he did say about that, he said, is it still Jeff talking? I think it still is. Said, if you have been married or had sexual partners, be honest about how frequently you desire sex. That's one of the examples. Do you create expectations with your dating partner before marriage that you cannot realistically follow through on after the covenants are in place and the honeymoon is over? And I think that's exactly what you're saying, that there are people that need to talk about it. Find out if your partner if it's a challenge for them to talk about it, and why, for sure, why, because there might be something you can do to help them work through that. There's also therapy, right, that we can have to work through it before you even get married if necessary. So it's good. Yeah, we always they also said we tend to view sexual compulsion as problematic, and we forget to recognize that sexual repression is also unhealthy. So one way or the other, if you're completely guarded or you're completely compulsive, there's not that connection. You can't have that connection if you're one way or the other. Anyway, it's good. Antonio, I know you have something.
Oh, I was.
I can see it on your.
Well, I think it's interesting just because, you know, I'm not in the dating world yet. It'll be really soon. I'm thinking it's going to be January, February. So we're getting there. Yeah, so that'll be nice. But I mean, I've just talked to a lot of people and a lot of my friends, and it's interesting the experiences they have gone through. And I think for me, what's been really interesting and was alarming at first was the how different members view it in dating. And I was, maybe I was sheltered when I dated before I got married the second time. And because I didn't come across anything that I had heard when I started talking to these friends, later in life. And so I think the communication, I always think communication is the number one thing you need to do. You have to know, really what you want and what your standards and your beliefs are, even in the church. That's the other thing. It's like not everyone believes the same thing, even as members of the church.
Yeah.
Not everyone wants to be, you coined the president's taught, not everyone wants to live a celestial life.
Yes. It's true.
And even active members of the church, members that actually attend the temple. I mean, it's very interesting what you find. And I even find that in my family ward where I when I teach, it's like people have different perspectives and different ways they want to live. And
True.
and so I think that communication is so important of when you are in that dating, just dating people, finding out really where they are and what their goals are and
Yeah.
what they want out of this life. Because if you don't have those discussions, and unfortunately some of them might not be truthful at first as
True.
well. I mean, I have a friend that just ended a relationship and they were dating for 3 months and it's just
You don't know.
they thought there was I thought there was going to be they were going to get married, and the person wasn't being completely truthful. It took 3 months to find out the truth.
You could have got married in 2.5 months.
Oh yeah, it would have been a disaster. It would have been a complete disaster. And so I think communication of really understanding and learning that person, I mean, in every area. And this is a big one as well, because everyone is different. You might meet someone that does not want the same thing you want, and that is so important. And then you're in another marriage and you're like, you're unhappy and it could be disastrous. So
Yeah, there are some really good questions in here, Antonio. Thank you for putting that out. There are some good questions that you can ask when you're dating.
I think I learned a lot of. I think I have a lot of the questions now.
Oh, you might, yeah.
Well, just from other people's experiences.
You're gonna have your own for sure.
Oh yeah.
These are some really good suggestions they had, and I too. We all would have our own. What are our underlying beliefs about sex? Do you believe sex drives away the spirit? That's another good question. Were you ever unfaithful to a spouse? Those are some really good, important questions. Ben has something to say. Is there a way to, you gotta say it because I can't read right now. My eyes are not seeing very good.
So is there a way to talk about this subject without completely spoiling the mystery, without making it mundane or trite? I mean,
what do you mean by mystery?
Yeah, what do you mean by that?
He wants it to be
okay, so in my first marriage, when dating, we never talked about any of it. It was all exploration and excitement and mystery. Right? You don't have the maturity to talk about these things. You don't know. And now with all that maturity and experience, it's like, okay, to what degree are you going to talk about? Are you just going to touch on it and leave a lot to the discovery and awkwardness and excitement and whatever? Or is it all spelled out like a daily planner? And
So, well, the kind of mysteries that you don't want to take on are marrying someone and then finding out she only wants to have sex once a month, or she only wants to have it 3 times a year, you know? Those are the kind of
I mean,
mysteries.
okay, so yeah, I think there are
Some questions, not too much. You're right. You want to have some.
there are some questions that are absolutely imperative, and like a frigid woman who only wants to have the minimal contact is usually exhibiting some degree of control, trauma, or other issue that I would hope to discover in the course of getting to know them more intimately, but more on an emotional level, because really sex shouldn't be just physical. It should be an emotional expression of unity and joy. And if they have aversions to emotional conversations or physical touch, that can be problematic. And there are some people that have total aversions to physical contact, but I've observed them. One of them is my daughter. It is selective. It's on her terms who she chooses to cuddle with and when she doesn't want to be touched or hugged. So
That's funny.
it just depends on the person. So it really is about getting to know their comfort level. I had a dog that was a Weimaraner, and those dogs are by nature aloof. They are not a cuddly dog. They do not, they want to sit in the room and pretend to ignore you, but they'll just keep looking at you to make sure you're still mindful of them. And if you get up and leave the room, they will follow you room to room to room, outside, inside, everywhere. They are called the gray shadow. And so if you have someone like that, you need to understand they still love you. It's just they're not, physical contact isn't super important. But on the other hand, someone else might need literal physical contact every 5 or 10 minutes to feel reassured and safe. So I think it's really important to get to know these things, but how far you go, I think you have to also explore gently and respectfully as you get to know someone.
Yes.
It's understanding where they're at. I mean, because I think you hit the nail on the head where some people might have trauma from other experiences. And, I would think if you get to the point where you are healthy and you have gotten through the traumas, you have gotten through some of the challenges through the past relationships, and you have you're working through those. I don't think we're ever going to be at a perfect spot where we've been able to eliminate everything. But I think you can get to a spot where you are ready and you've let go enough, and you're ready to move forward, and you're ready to explore. And I think that is one of the things that the dating is so important in dating, and not getting too wrapped up into the emotions so quickly, is because you can really see where each other is and see what the challenges that they've had. Like my therapist this week told me, because we were talking about a few of these things, and she said the main thing that you need to spend a lot of time dating at first and not jumping into another relationship, is because you're going to be able to basically learn from dating some of the challenges in your marriage.
Yeah, it's true.
And as you're letting go of those things and really finding where your responsibility is in that marriage and where you could have done better, And those things, because she was saying those things kind of like open up to you more as you're dating.
True.
And so I think I think the key would be is having those conversations, but then really seeing how that person is. I mean, I think everyone, if you're healthy, everyone likes physical touch. If you're healthy, I would think. I could be wrong.
Oh, you're
I
right, though.
mean,
You know what, though? Like what Ben was saying, it might be like an autistic or some, I don't know, I don't even know if that's what it is, but there are some who prefer not to be touched. So, but
right,
it's
but
not
a lot of times they have there's normally a trauma or
yeah,
something else. Yes, if you meet someone that is neurodivergent, that's a totally different story. I mean, I could talk about that all day long.
yeah,
Yeah, you guys want to know about that? Let me know. I mean,
yeah, it's
but
true.
that's completely different from
Makes sense. Yeah,
someone that it's not.
yeah. So the thing that I keep thinking of and all the stuff we're talking about is the relationship attachment model
Mhm.
that suggests that you first get to know someone and then you can build trust and then you can rely on them and then you can commit to them and expect commitments from them and then there's the physical touch. I'm curious what you guys think about that. We touched lightly on that last week, but I'm curious what you guys think about that, your experience or your advice or your thoughts on that or what you've heard. Have you guys been able to ever use that model? Are you familiar with the model?
I think it's hard to avoid physical touch until that point. And at what point
You
you
do
go
have
through all those steps and then you for the first time ever touch that person on the shoulder or hold hands. Like,
no,
I
I don't
think,
think it's that,
I
but
don't
I
think,
mean, my understanding is more like affection. I think it's more like intimacy, affection. Like they might even be talking about sexual intimacy at that point. I don't even know if it's Christian or
I think yes, a relationship will develop with all those things consecutively as long as you're both engaged and wanting that to grow together.
maybe just out of balance, right? Maybe it's just a matter of, like you said, consecutively, you're doing it all together, but not in one more than the other. Not
Yeah.
physical more than you trust them. That's a good one too. Okay, Ben has something else to share. I think you should say it, Ben. I'm the one that has the tired voice. I feel like I'm
I'll
experiencing
say
different.
the reason I write is because everyone's talking and I don't want, we'll move on and I'll lose the thought.
Got the stage. You've
But
got
it
the
was
stage.
something about what Antonio was saying about the timing and phase. And I feel like I'm experiencing different phases of dating as I look back on the last year and a half, almost 2 years. Initially, my dating experiences seemed to teach me more about me, and it gave me a perspective and context for understanding my prior marriage and those relationships. But with more healing and self-awareness, I feel like I'm changing my focus. So it's more a critical evaluation of the person I'm dating in terms of their personal qualities and what I'm trying to learn about them.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. It's good when you can look at the dating like that, like it's a learning experience. It's learning for you and it's helping and healing. That's really healthy.
But one thing I would put out there in big, huge billboard banners, all capital letters, italics, underlined, everything is
Right.
don't have this conversation on the first or 20th date. This is something for a more intimate, respectful, trusting relationship. And I don't know. I feel like I've heard too many stories from women about, horrible dates where the guy just moved too fast, got hands-on the first date, got like, no,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's a time and a place, and
Build trust first. You gotta trust them.
um,
I
and
think
Ship
some
is the
women that
key.
move really fast too. It's not just the guys. It's
Right.
it's and I think there's a certain, I don't know, biological imperative where if you think you can get them emotionally bonded to you physically, then maybe you have a better chance of keeping them around, having a second date, not losing them. There are other dynamics at play, but that's coming from a place of insecurity and uncertainty and not a place of respect and trust. So timing is important. It's a great subject, but not one for the,
I think it's
right off the bat.
Right.
it's
First,
relationship. I think relationship is the key. I mean,
Mhm.
you're dating someone to see if you would be interested in dating them in more of a committed relationship. But just because you're in a committed relationship doesn't mean you're going to marry the person.
Yes.
And I think that's where a lot of challenges are. People are afraid of the committed relationship because maybe they think they're not ready for marriage. Well, I like the theory in the book that we were, the how to avoid marrying a jerk.
Yeah.
Well, you find someone that you are interested in, you want to learn more about them. And if you are very intrigued with them and you've gone on a few dates and you still want to spend more time with them, then fine, have a relationship with them. It doesn't mean you're getting engaged. It doesn't mean you're getting married. It means you want to get to know this person, and you can zero in on that person and learn all about them. And maybe you find out you're not a good match. And when you're having that relationship, that's where you can have these other conversations. But no, not when you're just dating. That's
Yeah. I don't
but
know. If it's not exclusive or whatever. But here's the thing. What do you guys think about this? I wonder, we definitely have like what we think is a good timing and good conversations to have. I wonder if everyone's just different. And so maybe someone does, I mean, if someone might want to know all about how maybe that's the most important thing to them in a relationship. They might want that to be the first or second or third date. And they might not have as much luck finding someone that's going to be that aggressive or sort of or excited. But they'll find someone eventually, that's on their same plane. But I don't know. It's kind of hard to say how and when to do it, right? How to when to talk about it, because you'll find a match eventually. Rachel, did I welcome you? I think I did welcome you. I don't know if you heard me, if you're on mute, but welcome. Did you have anything you want to share? We're just talking away.
Yeah, well, and I just agree with what you guys have been saying. I mean, I was blessed in my first marriage, well, my only marriage, that our sex life was actually really good, our sexual relationship. But I also remember we talked several times how it's a really important part of marriage, but it's also not all you do all the time. Like it's a small part of as far as time together. There's a lot more of life that you're doing the companionate kind of love and getting through day to day and managing the house and the shopping and the kids and the work schedules and so I think that you just have to play. It was I think we talked about how it's like the oil that keeps the engine running. It's not the engine, but it's an important part of the relationship, but it's not everything, right? There's a whole lot of times that you can't be making love all the time.
That's true. Well, and that might be a personal opinion. You might find someone that, a partner, a dating partner, whatever, and he might think that that's everything to me. So maybe that's more important to someone than it is to another. But I agree with you. There are, I'm sure, many who agree with that. And then some also think that it's everything. I don't know. They get disappointed though, I'm sure.
But I had a couple guys that early on we were just texting or we had moved on to phone conversations, and they like the first phone or even I don't know, they wanted to bring up if I liked oral sex or something. And I was like, holy cow, why are we talking about this? Like, I don't even know if I like you or if I don't like to talk to you. And so I think like it can definitely come up too early, or I guess, like you said, maybe for one person, that's an important early on conversation, but it was too early for me in those conversations.
Yeah, and that's a good way to find out, really, just to communicate and just say, yeah, this is not okay. I'm not okay. I'm not comfortable with this. And if they're not, I mean, if they think that that's bad, that you're not comfortable, then you're not a good match. Respect boundaries both ways, I think is a good way to tell. Very good. So I
have a question.
Yeah.
I think this relates, but so since the So the online dating is so popular now. I'm just curious of what everybody's experiences have been. So if you're doing the online dating and you're getting to know someone, and let's say they don't live nearby, so you can't see them every week, you can't see them every day, you can't see them often at all. Maybe you're talking to them for months before you actually even meet. What boundaries or what experiences have you guys had where once you meet that person, where that intimacy is? Because I would imagine the emotion is strong there. And so what's your guys' thoughts and experiences?
I agreed with what Ben said about it being an emotional extension. It's just an expression from your emotional connection together. That's has been my experience, is that you have this intellectual and emotional and even spiritual connection. And then when you meet in person, it's just all part of it. It's just all like, it's all the same. I think it's all exciting. Every part of it, every part of your relationship when you have those other foundational connections. That's been my experience. Is that what you're asking?
Well, no, yeah, there's gonna be an emotion. There's gonna be that emotional experience already, because you can have the emotional experience while you're talking or doing the video calls. It's a I think when you meet in person for the first time, it's a confirmation of, do you really have that real connection? And so I guess my question really is okay, if you do find you do have that real connection, like you did talking and video chatting, or whatever communication you were using, then I guess it's like, what do you think how do you feel out that intimacy side? Do you just go on how you feel at the time, or you guys using certain boundaries? That's what I mean.
Yeah, I think what you're asking, Antonio, just really depends more on the person you're dating, and how I think it's how you feel at the time. And
might not even be dating. You might just meet the person for the first time and that you've been talking to for a while.
And then
might be a first date.
Yeah. And then you talk about boundaries. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm asking.
Oh, it's totally up to, I'm sure it's totally up to people, up to the couples. I mean, the people, individual, different for everyone. So there is a little bit of talk about boundaries. I don't know if this answers your question. Tell me if it doesn't, if you want other comments from other people to share what their experiences are, Antonio. But they did mention in the chapter that there's the guideline of the standards of youth, or what is it called? I know, I should know. My God.
For youth.
Yes. And it's definitely for youth. That's what they're saying. It's definitely because of their age and their level of their hormones and their limited level of understanding of intimacy and where it leads. They have had in the past, they've had some strict boundaries. They don't have those boundaries anymore, by the way. I don't know if you guys know that, but they're very open to, they're just like, you just follow the spirit and you do what feels right. It's kind of more, but their standard of youth is, they do say there are some guidelines. Yes, you do draw boundaries within the laws of chastity. But anyway, the point is that they bring in this chapter, and I'll just make it shorter, is that there's definitely guidelines for the law of chastity, but as you get older, you're going to have your own, because we have self-control and self-mastery. We know the boundaries. We know where it's going to lead. We know where to say, this is a good place to stop. So I don't know at our age if it's best to just say, okay, these are my boundaries. I'll kiss you, but I'm not going to go, or just to like have fun and go with it and say, okay, this is good, let's stop. Okay, Ben.
I don't think you can really assume anyone knows what the law of chastity is or those boundaries. A couple weeks ago, there was a post, someone asking, what if I got answered a prayer saying I could have premarital sex? And no, we just had a talk a year ago by Elder Renlund that if it's not consistent with the scriptures and commandments, it's not of God. But people will look for ways to justify their impulses and desires. Someone told me that like in the 70s or 60s that there was like this phrase running around BYU saying oral is moral. Like
I've heard about that. It's been many years since I've heard that, but yeah.
It's whatever that is, it's like that's just another indication of some people will seek to justify satisfying their vain desires, and it goes beyond any level of respect, decorum, and a propriety. So given that it's out there, you don't know who you're dating. You don't know if they were the cheater and the manipulator and the gaslighter, and that you're getting into a relationship with this person on the wrong side of the equation. You don't know if they were abusive or not. I mean, there's just so many things. And guess what? They hide them for a reason. There's a level of disconnect and hypocrisy, and just like, how do you know anyone is what they say they are? How do you know? And okay, the spirit can help you, inform you, but probably not on the first date, maybe not on the 10th, but you have to do your work to try to get to see them, know them, find out who their family and friends are, and hopefully get some independent confirmations about their character and nature and their history. I don't know that I would ever go to this so far as I know some people have gone to go talk to their ex, because that's asking for biased information up front. But on the other hand, it's a really good alternative perspective that raises a bunch of issues to confirm or deny, right? So I'm not there, but I don't know. I feel like I'm a really good judge of character. I do it professionally, and I've never had a bad hire. So, well, except maybe one that never showed up, but they never showed up. So who knows? But I think it's really dangerous to assume everyone's going to share your standards, your values, and your faith, even if you're dating within your own standards, values, faith community.
Yeah. So bottom line, I guess we can go back to that first paragraph that I read, is that it's up to us. Really, it is up to us in the spirit and how we interpret the spirit even. So these points written down that I really liked on page 217? We talked about the talking. If you feel uncomfortable with the topic, mid-single life is an ideal time to seek more education or treatment. That's a really good point, actually. If you feel like you want to be more comfortable with this topic, there's some therapy treatment you can talk about, or you can dive into. And if you are facing, let's see, if you are faced with such issues and want to fulfill sexual relationship, therapeutic or medical interventions could be quite helpful. She suggests that too. There are, this is what I have a little heart by this comment too, on page 218, right in the middle. Don't wait until after you're married and it is too late to find out that you are stuck with a man who doesn't desire you. There are unspoken feelings that you can only share through kissing and physical touch. I'm not recommending that you violate the law of chastity, but I do recommend that you keep in mind that you are selecting the only sexual partner you will have from now on. I know, Rachel, for some reason I was thinking what some of the things that you were saying kind of is talking about, that is that you want to be physically attracted, but it's not everything. But it is important. We just go back and forth. It is important, but it's not everything. Good important stuff. Oh,
well, I think one of the things that people forget is as you become more, okay, so you can meet someone and you might think that they're cute and they're attractive, and maybe you are focused on a certain type. And I think as you get to know people, and you get to know them more on the spiritual side and their emotions, and get to know really who they are away from just the physical,
Yeah.
then I think that I know that attractiveness grows on a different level as well.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes what we do is we have this set type or something, physical traits
Mhm.
in our mind that we have maybe been attracted to before, and maybe that's the only thing we're focusing on. And I think that could be a very a great detriment to your dating and your future relationship, because you don't know. I mean, that you might meet someone that was completely different than what you were thinking, and you're connecting emotionally, you're connecting spiritually, and so it could be an amazing relationship even though it wasn't what you were thinking physically.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very good point. Very
Hmm.
good. Gloria, did you have something you
Can
wanted
I say something? Yeah, first, do you get noise because I'm driving?
hear you? There's no noise. There's no background noise. We can hear you good.
It's okay. Okay, super. Because I'm driving and I have headphones. That's a great topic. Yeah, for me at least, I noticed that it's really important to be on the same level for this. But I had to discover. I mean, I had to. Let's say the more I knew myself the last 5 years, the more I could say, yeah, that's okay, that's not okay, and I cannot imagine to stay with someone putting aside the physical level, because I love touching a person, and for me it's very important to get in contact.
Yeah.
And yeah, I cannot imagine. Yeah, I think it should be, harmony is there when all aspects are there. I mean, at least for me, on the spiritual level, emotional, and physical level, because otherwise maybe you like one part, but you are missing something very important for you. And I think you will notice, maybe not immediately, but maybe later. I don't know.
Yes.
That's yeah. I think it's important to know yourself and the other person, and then to trust each other, and then the relationship will grow if it is the case. If it's not, okay, then you stop it. I mean,
safe. Yeah.
That's without pushing, because otherwise we are pushing each other for something. And why?
Yeah, for sure.
Sorry.
I'm reluctant to make comments on generalities of what most men or most women are like, because ultimately I'm not going to be dating most women or talking to most men. So every case is going to be an individual experience. And usually, pretty quickly, as soon as they open their mouth, what kind of person they are. And I don't want to be so judgmental that I'm going to write off a glorious, wondrous person because they like to cuss. And okay, that's not the worst thing in the world, but I find it ugly. It detracts from my impression of them. And I I didn't like it towards the end of my marriage, as my spouse was becoming more and more impatient and angry and started cussing way more, and decided that cussing wasn't a bad thing because the words don't mean anything anyway. And then she would use it. And I found it a disrespectful and abusive, and a lack of control and discipline. And it's just not something I value, and therefore it gives an impression. So, but would I say I'm not going to date someone because I heard them use some foul language? No, I might go a little further and explore who they are and what they're about. But the same goes across all lines of, boxes that you can check in a person, their level of patience or impatience, their level of energy, their 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 beauty. Am I not going to date anyone below a 5?
Yeah.
Or a 7 or a 10 or,
Men generally use that scale more than women. Is that right?
I
Yeah,
don't
maybe
know.
yes.
I'm not
I
gonna,
never use the scale.
We're generalizing again, right?
for the record, you're all a 10.
Oh, good.
You are all
Oh,
10.
that's
You can
good.
take that for the rest of the day. I
Very
think
good.
women
It's
are
amazing.
incredibly beautiful and wonderful creatures, and the level of beauty tends to diminish based on how they act, what they say, how they
No,
are.
that's true, Ben,
Right.
what you're saying. Can I ask you, because now this is language issue. I'm sorry, I apologize. What you were saying about your ex-wife, your ex-partner, she was, I didn't understand the verb.
Oh,
like,
So I was married for 22 years.
yeah,
And in the last 2 years, she decided she was already beginning to emotionally separate from me and decide
Yeah.
she wanted a divorce. Before we went to counseling, the counseling was kind of the nail in the coffin because the counselor told her, look at Ben. That's who he is. He's never going to change. You have a decision to make. You want to live with that or not? And she was like, permission, I'm out. But in the course of that time, she started dropping the F-bombs and being more vulgar and crude, and she was a happy person. And I found that very hurtful, unnecessary, unattractive, disrespectful. But
you're right. Yeah, I didn't understand. Sorry. Yeah.
No, that's okay. I was married to her. I was committed to her, and I was trying to make it work. I was going to counseling. We went to couples counseling.
Yeah.
6 months to her was like a year, and she thought she'd given it her all. And now I've talked to women who've been in counseling for 6 to 10 years. And I'm sorry, 6 months isn't trying. So.
Yeah, but you know what? I think you can be proud of you because you've done this.
Thank you.
Yeah, because at least, for you it was important. You tried. Then it didn't work, okay? But I mean, we are not everybody the same, no?
True. It's true.
Yeah.
So for those of you who read this, there's the section that have the book in front of you, the dating tightrope on page 223. I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about that. It's they said the important point. That was one thing that I highlighted as maybe one of the most important points I wanted to bring up. It says, as mid-singles waiting for marriage, we walk a tricky path, a dating tightrope, if you will. Life in this circumstance requires a delicate balance. On one hand, we need to find comfort with and acceptance of our own sexual desires, which are always part of us, whether we are married or not. On the other hand, boundaries are necessary while dating to honor the law of chastity and have the Spirit to be with us always. And then the advice that she gave was, be careful not to confuse fear or shame, however, with spiritual impressions. The Spirit does not condemn, it leads and guides, and we want that Spirit in our lives. So if you're feeling, anyway, I think that's important too. An important point to make is that sex is not as we have felt before we were married. Before we got married, we were feeling like you got to avoid that before you get married, and then there might be some that had bad experiences in marriage. Who knows? But if that's why it's tricky to be able to have it, to keep it sacred and keep it a good and joyful thing, and then not feel shamed by it, but have your gauge, whatever. Yes, Ben.
I think there's a whole entire other hour we could spend on discussing the cultural dynamic of sex within the church as a community. that has not been entirely helpful or healthy. You know, just looking at my teenage years, even though I was raised to love and respect women and children, you know, the taboo of talking about sex, or the suppression or repression of sexual drives, and the layers of shame that would often get laden on it, and you know, really made it unnecessarily complicated to some degree when I got to my wedding night. There were things that I don't know, there was just a lot of things missing that could have been healthier if there was a better framework. Part of that was probably my parents' responsibility, but I picked up on things in the church because, you know, there was a young woman that I remember seeing at the dance. All my friends thought she was the most beautiful girl at the dance. I danced with her, and I wasn't attracted, but my friend Dawn went out with her, and then she there was a progression of guys that she dated that ultimately kind of lowered standards until she got pregnant with one guy. But then my friend Dawn, who was the first to date her, was actually her friend, because she was made the pariah because this young man can't go on a mission now, and she's pregnant and she's shunned and she's mistreated. And it was like, why are we placing the blame on her as a culture and not him? I mean, and why are we putting so much pressure on an already difficult stage of life? And I think that carries through into the dating world, because so many women I've talked to have found men outside of the faith to be more respectful, patient, and you know, less horny and eager to get into physical and sexual romance than members of the church. And that men have this, you know, after the mission, they're entitled to get married so they can have sex. And, you know, that's a horrible reason to get married. But
I totally agree.
that is a reason that people do. And so
I totally agree.
It's out there. And so it can be very difficult to reconcile what is healthy sexuality in a religious culture that doesn't have a good grasp on what it is. I remember 3 couples came to a meeting of the Stake High Council when I was in my stake in Oregon, and two of the couple, well, all 3 of them had struggled with issues of either porn addiction or infidelity in marriage, where even just porn can feel like infidelity in marriage to the partner. And they're like, this is plaguing the church. Why aren't we talking about it? Why don't we have a marital and healthy sexual self-reliance class, or, you know, discussion? Because it's so taboo, we can't talk about it, and yet everyone's suffering in silence, thinking it's only them or there's something wrong with them. And I don't remember the name of the institute and the program, but I was intrigued by it because my marriage was struggling. There was no porn addiction or infidelity in my marriage, but the emotional stuntedness that I was dealing with at the time led me on a rabbit hole to explore, am I an intimacy anorexic? Are my emotional needs so small that I am depriving my partner of deeper emotional fulfillment? And there were a lot of things in that rabbit hole that made sense, that ultimately led me to a whole other platform of childhood emotional neglect and how to develop an emotionally healthy foundation from which to have a relationship. But it was that discussion of these very, you know, active and faithful members of the church had gone through these trials because there was no acknowledgement that these sexual challenges, trials, pornography, cheating, infidelity are a real issue.
Yes.
And then you're going to talk to a bunch of divorcees and former marrieds like it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
it's a major thing, kind of bringing it full circle back to where we started, that
Yeah.
some level of conversation and straight talk does need to happen.
Yes, and sensitivity to how they each are feeling. I think that's also really important. If you could both be sensitive, you can probably guess that you could work through those in a marriage relationship. Okay, one last thought. I do have to wrap up. My cousin is on her way and she's just running through town, so she's going to be in a hurry to stop and hug and then leave again. So I have to. I'll read this last paragraph and we'll go until she comes. But I wanted to warn you about that. I might have to take off. So the very last paragraph of the whole chapter says, "It does not matter our age, what shape and size our bodies are, or how many wrinkles we have. What matters most is how we carry ourselves and how we express all that we have learned in life as we authentically be who we are, while sharing the best version of ourselves and allowing attraction to flourish where it may." You know, I always do. There are some guidelines as the Teicherts offer, but I think it's always important to like we always bring this up in every session. I love that we always say, just have to be who you are, and you have to do it how you feel is best for you, and that is where you will find your match, your person. And Heather, I love that you had so many things before we started, and I'm guessing you haven't been able to share them all, but if you have anything else that's on your mind that you wanted to for sure bring up, I'd love to hear what else you have.
I'll just put the link from that.
Good idea for the podcast.
I'll put the link from that podcast into the chat. So if anybody wants to watch that, Dr. John Braithwaite did a good job of assessing whether or not a potential partner, whether or not you'd have a good sexual relationship past marriage. If you can explore these areas of personal qualities, that you could extrapolate those types of personality traits into a good sexual and healthy relationship in marriage.
Good. Yeah, Dr. John Braithwaite. Okay, thank you for doing that. Yes. So throw it in the chat, and then I can also copy it and put it in the website with this link, with this video. So very good, you guys. Does anyone else have any last thoughts they want to add before we say goodbye? Everyone have fun plans for the weekend? It'll be fun. It's only Saturday, isn't it? It feels like my whole week has felt like a weekend.
We could speak about this for hours.
Yes, it's true. We could. Different topics, right? We could dive into every one of those subtopics for hours. It's true. It's a really good conversation. I love that Heather shared that link and that the podcast, the Flameless Fireside podcast did that. Gloria, are you familiar with that podcast? You'll have to check out the link, Gloria. It's called LDS. Gloria. Sorry, yeah. It's for LDS. It's for the people who do the podcast are LDS, and they mostly address issues that are for Latter-day Saints, members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. But it is for anyone who's Christian. They always give topics that everyone can relate to also. So if you haven't ever watched any of their podcasts, it really is for everyone. And you may really enjoy that, Gloria, because it sounds like you like this topic.
Or worse, maybe it's my line. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a good topic. So you can check out the link also. Heather will share it with us. Or did you share it already, Heather? Okay, share it now or else we're going to lose it. Oh, I can do it too. It's just are you just going to do it from Facebook?
Do you need me to put it in the link in the chat notes now?
No, you can just do it in the Messenger, right? Because we're all in Messenger. Is that what you're thinking when you said that? Messenger. Okay, that's better because this is going to disappear. Okay, guys, have a fabulous weekend and a week. And there's no assignments. This is not a week that we can give assignments. We'll wait until we're married to give assignments on this topic. You guys have a good week. See you later.